Hi guys, welcome to the Gun Shop with me, John, and today we've got Nick Horton here from Langston Wildfowlers, and we're going to start a scientific project, semi-scientific project. Namely, this particular gun here. This is Nick's own Yugata chair, and we're going to see what effect the use of steel shot in this gun has over it over the coming seasons, essentially. You've not shot any steel through it yet?
It's had a couple of steel cartridges through it, but not box loads, no.
So we can say this is not quite virgin, but is almost there. Has only fired a couple of steel shots. So what we're going to do today, very simply, is that we're going to inspect the barrels. We're going to visually inspect. We're going to use gauges to mark internal bore 9 inch from muzzle, 9 inches of the chamber, choke and wall thickness across these barrels, both in the left and the right. Presumably you shoot more single shot kills than anything, so the right barrel, if anything, will wear faster.
Reasonable assumption, yeah.
If it does wear. And that is as simple as my part in this process goes. Nick will now relay some steel shot information to you whilst I do my bit.
Yeah, this particular gun is a 3-inch Yugata chair. It's a Spanish manufacturer. From the proof marks, not the proof marks, from the maker's serial number, I can tell that this gun was made in 1983. So it's a relative newbie. I picked it up for 250 quid, and it appeared to have had extremely little use with any shot material. It's virtually pristine in terms of its overall condition. One of the reasons for doing this is that for those of you who've kind of been keeping an eye on what's happening with lead shot, the last hurdle that the retention of lead shot got over was a government one in terms of the lead. What's the name of the group?
The anti-lead group, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't called the anti-lead group, but
it had something equally as stupid, didn't it? It was something along those lines.
It's gone out of my head completely. However, the government said no problem with lead, carry on. What's bubbling away in the background is the European Chemicals Agency, which, as its name implies, is a European agency whose job is to look at chemicals, heavy metals, and their environmental impact. They are looking at this.
Just oil in that barrel, I presume.
Yeah. What can you see?
Just look. Well, I presume it's just when you pull the brush out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
If you I think you spotted that beforehand.
If you run a decent cleaning brush up, if you do it properly, then, unlike I did.
Just double checking.
No, it should be spotless inside. But yes, it wouldn't do to think, despite the best efforts of our shooting associations, to think that lead, sadly, was safe forever. Wildfowlers have been using non-toxic shot. Increasingly, the majority have been using steel for some years now. And there's a lot less terror about steel shot within the wildfowling community than there is within certain other elements of the shooting community. Now, as Johnny will tell us quite forcibly, what I'm going to talk about now is probably not recommended.
Taboo.
But it's done within the following parameters, and they are this. This gun is not steel shot proofed, but steel shot proof is actually a significantly more fierce proofing than for lead, in as much as each barrel would fire 2 cartridges?
2 each.
Two cartridges, 2 proof cartridges instead of the 1 that it would be in each barrel if it was lead. However, the pressures that they're respectively proofed for are very similar. The working pressure for a 3-inch steel cartridge is 1050. Let me just double check the units. Bar. It's bar. This gun is proofed at 1370 bar for a working service pressure of 1050. So although this is not a steel-proof gun, because the two proofs are technically different, the pressures that it's designed to operate with are very similar. One of the downsides is that steel shot proof has undergone a number of changes in recent years. It's now an EU-based thing, and it seems to change almost weekly. It's been measured in bar, newtons, pascals, with a piezo transducer. I've frankly lost the plot as far as where we are in technical terms with it, although again the basic parameters are the same. So what I'm going to be doing with this gun is using it for the coming season, either with Ely Lightning 3-inch cartridges. This is a full-on 36-gram cartridge in number 3 shot. Because it's number 3 shot, the barrels, the chokes of this gun have been opened to 1/2 and 1/4. The other cartridge that I'm using is a standard velocity Ely VIP. This is a standard velocity cartridge, and I could quite legitimately, if that's the right word, use that cartridge in this gun without any concern about levels of proof, because these cartridges are designed to be used in guns which, provided they have a certain basic level of soundness and have passed and are still in the appropriate level of proof, they're perfectly safe to use. So we're going to go slightly outside the accepted parameters by using this 3-inch cartridge through a non-steel proofed gun, but as we explain momentarily, for a gun, I'm sorry, I'm fascinated by watching you do that, which was built in 1983. It was built primarily, as you can tell from the style, for the American market, and in 1983 the Americans had actually been using steel shot for quite some time. So this gun was designed to be used with steel, although again the risk of sounding completely repetitive, it is not steel shot proofed.
But I think actually what you're saying about steel shot proof, I know you're being repetitive, but it is very, very important, because that is the law from my side.
Yes.
That if you are going to use a steel shot through it, I cannot technically sell you a gun that's not steel shot proof.
No.
Obviously it's a personal preference. When you get it home you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And a lot of it I think is more arse covering warranty type of thing.
Oh yeah.
And I get also what you were saying about the American market, but they don't have a proof house.
No.
Because they're
and all of their
less cautious than us.
Yes, well, yes, they are probably a bit less cautious, but equally all of their disputes are solved by massive litigation. So if a gun blows up, you could expect to be sued to the ends of the earth, which is kind of the incentive to get it right in the first place. And indeed one of the reasons why American-made guns are so robust. This one, like I say, made in 1983, as we discussed earlier, it is in fact an ejector, which is slightly unusual for a 3-inch chambered gun, but it's also slightly lighter built than its AYA 3-inch number 3 equivalent.
It's quite nimble. It is
Yeah,
very nimble, actually.
that's the reason I
mean,
bought
even
it.
the way through the stock, it doesn't have that same monster.
I had a very nice 3-inch AYA non-ejector up until about 2 years ago, but because of my shoulder injury, the long and short of it was I couldn't shoot with it. It was too heavy. And then when I picked this up, I thought, well, this is definitely manageable, because its handling characteristics are completely different. So here we are. I'm intrigued to know what they're actually bored at, the chokes.
Right hand was 11th thou.
So what does that equate to in...
Quarter.
Okay, yeah, so you got that right, I'm pleased to say.
Hopefully so.
And again, whilst this is not the sort of lightweight English gun that the use of steel shot has the potential to cause problems with, this is at the other end of that scale. It's a big, chunky, well-built and indeed comparatively recent, fairly modern gun. It's not as if you're using a gun that's 120 years old, and things like metal fatigue might begin to enter into your equation. That's not going to be.
I know you're talking totally different wall thicknesses, totally different chamberings, totally different barrel build. I mean, they are chalk and cheese. Would, however, be interesting to seeing how this one goes, to then maybe take an older English gun of lower value, because if it did destroy it, I'd be heartbroken.
Yes.
But to take it and actually see what effect you had there. I'm just going to check wall thickness out. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
Yeah. The Yucata themselves enjoyed quite a good reputation within the Spanish gun trade. For instance, for a long time they made the side-by-sides that were marketed by Parker Hale, which were good, which were quite a reasonable quality of gun. Certainly the finish on this one is as good as any that I've seen. The balance, the handling, the general finish across the board are quite adequate. I will in a second. Do you reckon that engraving's rolled?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that. It's not. It definitely isn't applied by hand, but at least it's been put on square, and it kind of generally adds to the quality of the gun. Fascinating tool, that is.
I've always wanted they do a triple tower one, but they sell for about 1,600 quid. And for the amount of barrel measurement I do,
and what's it telling you?
this is doing wall thicknesses. This one, it's telling me that you've got very thick walls.
Yes.
Unsurprisingly, given that it is a
Yeah.
Spanish-built gun. However, not as thick as some. Right, you've got 32 thou. Right.
And what would we be talking about with a comparable but older English game gun?
20.
Yeah.
20. So you lose about 10,000 thickness. I say 20. 23, 24 is common. I know a long time ago, about 5-10 years ago, a Purdy passed proof, and that had, I think, 13 thou thickness.
Yes.
That's paper. That
Yes.
is
Oh, yeah.
paper.
And of course, one of the classics, of course, was W.W. Greener, who made a conventional looking side-by-side gun which passed proof with a 2.5-inch cartridge for 1 ounce of shot, which after it was proofed he cut up the barrels with a penknife. So thin were the walls, just to make the point that it could be done.
Oh, that's fascinating. 28. I shall make a note at this point. I'm testing on the outside. Alright, so we've got some measurements here. However exciting they are at the moment, nobody will know. The gun is proofed at 724 18.4, but given that one of the barrels is slightly under 729, they wouldn't have probably proofed it at 729. So, it's proofed, 724, it measures 729 and 729.5, 9 inches from the muzzle, and 728.5 and 728.5, and 728 in the right. So in terms of boring, it's 12 bores. 12 bore is 729, and within 1 thou of that, that's pretty exceptional one way or another. The boring isn't perfect, but so you can't expect, given it's fairly mass produced.
It's a £250 gun.
Yeah, pretty much. Chokes, you've had it reamed out because obviously, if we were talking about this gun with tighter chokes, the pressures would build up, and you're much more likely to get ring bulging and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
11 thou, which is just over a quarter being 10 thou, and 18 thou, which is just under half. The choking is very good. It's not perfect, and as such, there's a little bit of a rough finish in there. I'll be very interested to know what happens to that. And I think actually, if anything was going to wear, that would be the first point that I think we're going to look at. And the wall thicknesses, you've got 32 thou in the right and 28 thou in the left on the outside walls. At the moment this means very little, but I'm really looking forward to finding what happens.
Yes.
How many shells do you reckon you would get through in a season?
That's a good question, and the thought
Complete cartridges, sorry.
The thought suddenly crossed my mind that wildfowling being what it is, I might fire a few hundred, I might fire significantly less than that. Probably what I will do is use it as I would normally do, come what may, as far as the wildfowling is concerned. But what I will do, if the usage has not been
Mind keeping a mild cartridge count
I
for us?
will A, keep a cartridge count, but B, if I've not really put enough through it to warrant any sort of reasonable test, what I will do is go to a clay shoot and bang another 50 or 100 through it before we check it again.
Very good. Visual inspection is absolutely fine. There's no ring bulging, no anything. You have a touch of swell on your choke anyway, given the make and style of the gun. It's not to be unexpected. But apart from that, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Very fascinated to learn about that greener thing. I've not heard that before. But I know that guns, generally speaking, in fact, going taught me plenty of stuff. It always comes out the easy end.
Indeed.
It takes an awful lot to blow a hole in the side of a barrel.
Yes. Yeah. And steel has kind of got off to a bad start in this country, but perhaps for the right reason. But definitely, if it's going to be in the future of shooting more so than is the case now, the more practical based reference work like this that we have to look back on, then the better it is for the future of the sport, where at the moment, in most people's perception, it's based purely on rumour.
Yes, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care, and we'll see you next time.